Hey, welcome to the Ron Johnson Discipleship Podcast.
So glad you guys are tuning in and listening. Hope you had an incredible Mother's Day, some great celebration. Did you do anything big on the
Call my mom.
That was nice.
That was good.
Your mom lives in
Virginia.
Virginia. Yeah. We're going to be talking about Virginia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and guess what I was talking to them about? Okay, we're going to go there. Hey, Mom.
By the way, let's segue to Virginia.
Yeah, it was literally, Happy Mother's Day, Mom. Hey, how about that Supreme Court? My mom was like...
What I love, though, is your mom and dad could probably go there.
No, they were happy about it, yes, absolutely. So anyways...
we can't jump to the Supreme Court.
Yeah. So what did you do for Mother's Day?
Well, again, I'm here limping around, so it wasn't much excitement at my house. I had someone bring me a plate of food. But it was nice for Marion and I. We had all of our kids kind of descended on the Johnson household, and
it's just cars in front of your house.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like a used car lot. But we had a great time just being together.
Yeah,
at this point, it's just fun to be together, and then my kids and my grandkids all went out, took a walk, played some basketball, did all that kind of stuff, and I just sat there like a one-legged guy that's in a lot of pain.
No basketball for you.
Yeah, no basketball for me.
Was your mom there?
And she was with my sister.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
But it was great having mom in church.
Yeah,
I thought it was really
good.
cool the way everybody just kind of spontaneously popped to their feet and honored her. What a legacy.
Well, and that was a great message yesterday. And that story you told at the very end is very, very powerful. How a mom's vision for prayer and vision for their child.
Yeah.
If you haven't listened to the sermon, go listen to it. One mom's vision for their child completely changed the trajectory.
It's amazing how a mother's eyes view her children through a different lens than the world, you know? Yeah. And when love is the core of who you are, and love for your child, and belief and faith in your child can shape, and the words, Matthew and I were talking about on the way over here, just the words, the power of words to shape reality. So, man, we got to use our mouths correctly, and we got to speak life and believe in people and encourage people, because it really makes a difference. Of course, if we're talking about a story that's been attributed to Alexander Graham Bell, of course, ironically, the young man grows up in a family where mom and dad both have severe hearing deficit. So he's very sensitive to those things, and then he spends his life, figuring out how we can talk to people through a telephone on the other side of the world. And you think about how that technology now has literally connected us, globally. All from a young man who was asked to leave the school because he was, a troubled student, couldn't focus, all those kinds of things, and a mom who believed in him and rewrote his destiny, which is incredible. So praise God for that. Yeah. Also, it was a big week for us as Living Stones. For me personally, let me just say this. This was the vindication of 20 plus years, maybe 30 years of believing that the church should have a significant role to play in identifying the gifts that are in the body of Christ, and recognizing that the call to government is a sacred call. Government is an institution created by God, and the Bible talks about the type of leaders that we should select: capable men, God-fearing men, et cetera, et cetera. And I made the statement yesterday, we got to stop just cursing the darkness and actually do something about shining the light. Government's not everything. We have other much more important things to be about. But as we've talked about, when you idolize government, and when government is your God, as it is in America today, then by ignoring government, you could experience a lot of trauma in your nation, and then it touches everything. It touches your pocketbook, touches your family, touches religious liberty. I mean, you can't ignore government. And so for us as a church to have two of our members run for the Indiana State Senate, these were primaries, so they secured the nomination, It is amazing, stunning, awesome, crazy awesome.
Stunning, yeah.
And so for me, again, I want to just thank, Isaac Carr, who was over our public square ministry, because he's really done a lot of the practical steps, just to identify candidates, get them involved, and, all things public policy. Yeah. So it was amazing. Both were incredible upsets. Both of our candidates ran against people who had been, pretty well established.
Very well established.
Yeah.
Knew them from decades ago.
And I just want to say, to those that were on the short end of the stick there, Rick Niemeyer and Dan Durnell. These are good guys. I consider them friends. The big issue in Indiana is one that we're going to talk about in this podcast. It was the failure of our Senate to recognize the need to call for redistricting, especially based on the strategy of the Democrats to take over, power again. And we tried to remind our listeners of what happened, 4 short years ago, and the incredibly different administration in terms of where our country was headed, what was going on. And we've said this on this podcast, thank God that this was all interrupted with a victory by Donald Trump, because we've been on a completely different trajectory as a nation. And so, again, for me, it was like, in those early days, you remember this, people said, we don't want to go to a political church, or when I got involved in the pulpit freedom thing, you're breaking the law. You're not honoring authority. You're violating Romans chapter 13, when really what we were saying is, no, government should be submitted to the law of God, the 10 Commandments and so forth, religious liberty, all the freedoms that we have, that government should recognize those. And when they don't, we have a duty to disobey. Well, that was considered being crazy, radical, disobedient, rebellious. And so it's just fun now to realize that, sometimes you work at things for a long time and you don't see the fruit of it many times for a decade or more. But to finally see us getting traction in that area, I know this year, as far as delegates, we have twice as many delegates potentially as we had last year, which is huge. So it gets me excited that people are getting involved. They're being patriots. They're being good citizens. They're being godly people who care about our life. Our public policy deals with our life together, our community. Yeah. We should be concerned about our communities, and I'm just excited to see that happen.
Can I take a moment and share my heart on that night?
Yeah.
So I'm going to take a little bit of time. That night I was nervously scrolling through the results.
Yeah,
and
me too.
On my Twitter page, all of a sudden I saw a clip of CNN talking about how the challengers in Indiana Senate was demolishing the incumbents. And I'm seeing Trevor DeFreeze.
It was like 70%.
Yeah, just like I'm seeing what's going on I'm seeing his face. There's a guy who I see in the church parking lot,
Yeah.
His face on CNN, winning the Indiana Republican primary. And we still got a general election to go, so I don't want to, celebrate too early. But, and also Jay, obviously from our church, and among other people who won. And the narrative on my Twitter page over and over again is this is not just like, some Indiana race only. This has national implication.
Yeah.
These are voices that the base is trying to speak to D.C., to the Republicans in D.C. and say, hey, you have the power. We gave you the votes. Do something with it.
Yep.
Don't just do status quo. Status quo has not served us well for decades.
Yep.
Do something with us. It has a voice, a catalyst to ignite changes on the national level. This has, along with the Supreme Court decision, along with what's going on in Virginia we'll talk about, has ignited energy in the Republican base. Traditionally, in midterm years, the president's party almost always loses tons of seats, which opens up all kind of door. It kind of made the president a lame duck president.
Yep.
This has changed momentum. I feel it. I think if you look on Twitter space, the Republicans are feeling it, and it's all grassroots. Yep. And we at this church are able to be a part of that. I want to honor you because it is truly, I've seen it, decades of Pastor Ron kind of sounding the alarm, blowing the horn about an issue that is, I'm just telling you, man, if you don't think it's popular now, it is so unpopular 10 years ago. You yourself got in the ring, ran those races, knocked on doors, opened doors to even for Christians to think, oh yeah, wait, maybe Christians should get involved, like actual Christians, not just people who check that box, and people who actually attend church, people who actually have a relationship with Jesus, to engage in politics again, especially in our region, but also nationally. Again, people see this and we celebrate, and I want to celebrate all the candidates, everything. But this is groundwork, like you said, decades of groundwork, of laying foundation, of messaging, of preaching, of standing strong against criticism. So this is not simple. This is a great, great celebration. what God's doing. And again, my premise on why America has decayed to where we are is because I think Christians have retreated from the public squares. Yeah. We need to be more engaged.
Yeah. And in doing that, just to make a comment, when we're saying Christians engaging in the public square, we're not talking about the suggestion that there's been a false accusation that somehow we've lost our sight of Jesus and now we're putting all of our eggs in the political basket. That's not what we're saying at all. We're saying that the political basket also must recognize the lordship of Christ. In other words, we're not making an idol out of it. We're actually shrinking it to its proper place because the left worships power, as we've highlighted. So this is not like getting our eyes off the target. The target is still the Great Commission. The target is people coming to know the Lord and being discipled. But that Great Commission includes discipling nations, which somehow we conveniently, glossed over.
Oh, absolutely. Again, it's like, let's just get people saved, and then we hide within the four walls of the church. Like, how well has that worked in the past? Yeah. We have to get engaged. We have to get engaged in business. We got to get engaged in politics. We have to get engaged in government. We have good people leading us. We have to talk about it. Christians need to be engaged. So, even when we're going to talk about more, how United States, if the people who vote, who have similar idea actually vote correctly, will be a different nation. We need engagement.
And we've seen this over and over again. And I can't quote the exact, data, but the number of folks who call themselves Bible-believing, Jesus-loving Christians who don't even vote, who aren't even registered to vote. If we just got engaged and just voted our values, we would see a completely different America. And it's not that hard, and it's a privilege. People like to compare us to other countries. There's no country that compares to America. There's no country that has the freedoms in our Constitution, that we have here. And so, it's not asking a lot. It's just, man, do you care about your country? I watched a movie yesterday. Marion and I were sitting at home last night. We Were Soldiers. It's a 2002 movie with Mel Gibson. Yeah. Oh my gosh, we're sitting there crying and watching the sacrifices that our soldiers made. This was the Vietnam War. And then realizing again how people just burn our flag and treat our country like it's, like it's poison, or it's something sick, like it's some disease. It's like our country is so great and people have fought and died for our freedoms. So the least we can do is get out and vote. The very least. So, I pray that Jay and Trevor are like the harbinger, that breaking through the dam, and that behind them, again, not just from our church, but from churches, Christians from churches all over America that would get involved and begin to change the political landscape.
It's not about living stones. It's about, let's go back to how he was, the founding fathers. These are churchgoers, they are Christians. Some of them are pastors who are saying, hey, I can't just watch this. I got to get involved. I got to get engaged. Yeah. I want to remind people the best scientists historically, the best architects, the best scholars, the best governmental civil servants were all Christians. Western civilization got their ideas from biblical worldview, and that changed the world. We ought to be at the head of all those things. And we should once again engage, and we're starting to do that. So,
and I'm encouraged, I didn't get to share in detail, but Marion actually made me aware of it. The gathering this coming Sunday, I tried to highlight it a little bit.
In D.C.
Sunday, in D.C., We're basically, it is a declaration that America was founded by Christians and that it was a miracle. Yeah. A lot of times we skip over the miraculous nature. We fought the most powerful nation on the planet and we won. Yeah. And then, focusing on the next 250 years, if the Lord tarries, on American exceptionalism, how God has so blessed this nation as we've honored Him. Yeah. This is more than just symbolic. When the leader of a nation declares a direction or makes a statement like this, like I said Sunday, God hears that and God takes us at our word. And so, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. This could be a real pivotal turning point as we come upon 250 years, as a country. So I'm really, really excited about that. I looked at the list of the various guests that will be speaking and be a part of that. The Speaker of the House is going to be there. Marco Rubio is going to be there speaking. So it's good to have people like that in the highest positions of power that recognize the hand of God on this country and that welcome the hand of God on this country instead of, treating, God and religion as something, again, that needs to be completely taken out of our public life together. So I'm very, very excited about that. But, I'm going to throw the ball back to you because as you're talking with your mom in Virginia, there was some exciting, crazy things that happened in Virginia. And there's also some things we need to be deeply concerned about when we look at their current leadership.
Well, as you know, Virginia tried to enact a referendum. They won by like 2 or 3 points. In Virginia is,
I think it was 51-49 or something like that. 2 or 3 points. And the referendum first of all, the timing of the referendum did not follow the Constitution. This is not my opinion. It's just very, very clear. Right, these are the facts.
The verbiage is not like a fair, like in just a normal language. It was like, hey, to restore fairness. Like, that's persuasive. There's so many things wrong with this referendum.
Right, when you say to restore fairness, you're already in the language promoting your view of the issue.
Just it's surprising to me how blatantly unconstitutional is referendum, but they still push it through. Again, we'll talk about that later. So the Virginia Supreme Court some circuit court first says no. They went to Virginia Supreme Court and they first said, we're not going to let this certification happen. We're going to wait. And then I believe this past week, Friday or so, I think a decision came out, 4-3. They struck down the referendum. The guy who wrote the deciding decision was a Democrat. I think it's Mark Warner appointee. He wasn't like a Republican appointee.
Right.
So again, this is pretty clear. So that redistricting, that this octopus coming out the Northern Virginia district is now rendered null. And they exposed to the world and to all of Virginia that the governor, she said, I'm not going to do
gerrymandering. She ran as a moderate.
I'm not going to do that. So now she lost all credibility. So that's the first domino to fall.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is interesting. This is, again, Victor Hansen, Victor Davis Hansen, who we enjoy on this podcast, enjoy quoting him. He points out something interesting about not only what's going on in Virginia, but nationally. He says Democrat policies are so unpopular that they no longer believe they can win voters. And so now they're trying to radically change the system of governance instead. Hansen says, it seems to me that the Democrats have lost confidence in their agenda. In other words, they don't believe that you, the voter, really does want an open border. Same is true of critical race theory. Same is true of transgenderism or the Green New Deal. The only thing that they've had to run on thus far is we hate Trump. Trump's a fascist, et cetera, et cetera. That's not gaining any traction either. I think that's getting very, very old.
Yep.
And so they're angry. They look at these long-term prognoses and they see this is not working well. And so what's their reaction? To change the agenda that you have to win over the vote? No. It's to change the system. And so we see a lot of talk from the left now about getting rid of the Electoral College. We see a lot of talk about the census and counting illegal people that are here illegally, because that's about 30 million people. And he says they're also looking at packing the Supreme Court. Democrats would rather break the system than fix their failing agenda. What do you think about that?
Well, now the newest thing to overturn what's going on in Virginia, which I love and I hate at the same time, which is almost comical, is that they want to pass a law that limit the age of Supreme Court in Virginia to 52 years old.
This is like, they've already got the court established, so this would be a retroactive vote. In other words, once they pass this, they're going to completely...
You guys all aged out.
All aged out. So basically, this is just an unconstitutional power grab strategy to wipe out to punish basically the court that just gave you a ruling that you don't like.
So now the new governor can appoint 7 new justices that will do their bidding, which even that framework is saying, oh, we don't want independent justices. We want political appointees who's going to do whatever we tell them to do.
So it says here, this was from the New York Times, the plan, retroactively lower the judicial retirement age to 54 so the entire court is ineligible overnight, and then pack it with 7 hand-picked replacements. He said the backup plan, and this person says the backup plan is somehow worse, invalidate the 2020 constitutional amendment that Virginians overwhelmingly approved to create the Independent Redistricting Commission, then let the legislature draw whatever lines they want. He says this is a banana republic, like total institution destroying madness. These are the people who lecture you every day about saving the democracy. This is crazy. And I think most people recognize, as you said, it's a pure power grab.
Well, so you and I are talking about, like, Jonathan Turley, who's the Georgetown law professor who's on the news a lot. To me, he's not really a conservative.
Right.
He's just like a moderate. He's trying to just kind of stick to the law. But he is just going off on Democrats recently. He basically said the Democrats have no value, no institution is truly sacred. And I would argue, and I would say, no, it's actually super clear. The only value they have is power.
Yeah, and that makes sense when you throw out the almighty God of the Bible, who has all power, and you have a sense of where you fit, submitted to him, and you understand the institutions submitted to him. When all that's gone, there's a power vacuum, and people start filling that vacuum, and that's a dangerous place to be. I wanted to point out here a couple of things. This was again a meme I saw from Javier Milei. He's the president of Argentina. He said, "I thought the left was a mental problem, but it's actually a disease of the soul. It's built on envy, hatred, resentment, and unequal treatment under the law. When they run out of arguments, they resort to violence." And boy, we've been talking about political violence. It is a misnomer to suggest that political violence is equal on the right as it is on the left. It's also, we talk about gun violence, and I love the fact that the NRA has, I don't know how many millions of members. You never see gun violence on the right. You never see people going up, shooting up groups of Democrats at a concert or something like that. It's always on the left. And I think he nails it on the head. This was another meme I saw. It said, illegals help Democrats win elections, but illegals counted in the census also give Democrats extra House seats. So the entire Democrat power structure depends on illegals and fraud. This is why they hate ICE so much. I think that nails it on the head.
Illegals and racially drawn districts.
Yeah, so let's talk about that Supreme Court ruling. That was a massive one, and man, the Democrats are still trying to figure out how to respond to that.
Well, in certain red states, not Indiana, other red states are quickly pivoting. Which, man, I guess we have to win the Senate first so we can do Indiana. But, Tennessee so quickly passed the redistricting. Florida quickly passed it. Louisiana is Supreme Court mandated to redistrict. So now, all of a sudden, there's momentum in the midterms, and the picture looks very, very different.
Yeah, so we're talking about Louisiana versus Callais. And basically what they said was that the Voting Rights Act, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, required racially gerrymandered districts wherever they could be contorted enough to make the demographic math work. Last week, the court corrected that misinterpretation. As the opinion's author, Justice Alito, patently explained on page 6, section 2 of the Voting Rights Act was designed to enforce the Constitution, not collide with it. In other words, this section of the Voting Rights Act explicitly prohibits voting practices or procedures that discriminate on the basis of race. So this is saying, no, you cannot create special districts that are racially driven, which, as you're pointing out, the impact of this for the midterms is huge, because what's that do instantly with the number of contested seats that are going to be redrawn?
It's interesting because of all the gerrymandering that's happening, most House representative seats are like basically either red or blue. Like they aren't changing much. Now, because of the recent redistricting and Virginia losing those 4 seats, right now, based on Cook's reporting, political reporting, is about 212 that leans R or safe R and 207 D with 16 toss-ups. And the other difference is the Republican has tons of money and the Democrats don't have money.
Right. Because again, money follows vision. And
well, they just spent about $65 million in Virginia, and that got all burned up to nothing.
Wow.
So nothing's promised. We got to go out and vote. We got to energize. We got to engage. We got to get out. But man, it looks a lot better for Virginia, for Republicans to retain the House than before.
And what's crazy is back to the Tennessee issue. The place that's contested is actually, it is a largely black district that the constituents of that largely black district voted for a white Democrat to represent them. And so it makes no sense. It like throws us back. We're trying to get past slavery and racism and all this kind of stuff, and the Democrats keep pushing us back there. They're basically saying, no, we have to have a black person representing a black district, and in a black district, they already voted for a white person because, some people actually get the fact that it's not about the color of our skin, it's about the content of our character. And so Scott Jennings, I saw him completely obliterate the panel because it was just like, you folks have nothing to stand on. You say you should be against racism, but you're some of the most racist people on the planet, some of these talking heads. So this is huge. And it just reminds me again, so much of what we're dealing with is perception. And it's largely perception that's created by talking heads and the media. You get the idea that America is really, really divided and that there's all these people promoting transgenderism. It's about a toss-up or whatever other crazy thing, open borders. And what you realize when you actually get past the gerrymandering and actually look at voters, some of those, you might have seen this as well, but they asked Grok, what would legitimately drawn,
no bias, no political bias. It's just
what would a map look like? And it was like all red. I mean, it's just crazy how this country has really been hijacked by people who do not share the views of average Americans. And they've used the system against us to steal a lot of seats and to stay in power. But all that, it's beautiful. It's all crumbling like a sandcastle. The waves of truth keep crashing on the shores, and this false edifice that they have erected, it looks so powerful, and it's been amplified. It always reminds me of the Wizard of Oz. When you pull the curtain back and you find that the wizard's not all that intimidating. We're seeing that the left agenda is crumbling quickly, and all they can do is throw temper tantrums like that representative from Tennessee did after they lost. I mean, it was like a fracas in the court. I mean, nobody has any sense of behavioral standards, ethics, or decorum. It's just a joke. And I saw a list of all the people whose districts had just been dissolved or will be dissolved or redrawn, and it's like the who's who in the zoo for leftist knuckleheads. I mean, they're not going to have any power anymore. Well, starting with Jasmine Crockett,
Texas.
Wow. And the guy that got thrown out of the State of the Union address 2 times in a row, he's on that list too.
The king?
Yeah, with the king.
Al Green.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So, I mean, it's like the who's who in the zoo of the leftists. So I'm excited about that. But I guess what I'm saying is sometimes we get to be pessimistic. Yeah. And we really shouldn't be. Number one, we trust the Lord for our future. Number two, though, we get involved. And it's amazing how quickly things can turn, on a dime.
Well, I'll add one more thing. I'm feather to your cap. 2030, if we're in charge, Republicans are in charge, and we do a fair census, that is also a game changer. The migration, first of all, not counting people who are illegal here.
Yep.
All the migration of people from blue states to red states, they don't want to handle the politics.
Because those states are growing now, so it means they have more representatives.
How about this one? This one you relate to. The natural reproduction of red state Christians and parents and conservative who believes in family and freedom and want to have lots of kids.
Yep.
All of that is going to lead to many, many more electoral college votes, House of Representatives in red states than in blue states. So that's a huge game changer. I mean, it's looking really bad in the long term for Democrats. That's why they got to make some crazy moves. That's why you see the ramp up in violence, ramp up in rhetorics, all these different things. It's not because they aren't strategic. They're looking at the 8 ball. It doesn't look good.
Yeah, it doesn't. And again, they don't have much time to correct it. I mean, when you don't have a vision, a unified vision, and their party has been throwing crumbs to the leftist radicals in their party, but they're never going to be satisfied. They just want more power, more power, more power, and I don't know where they're going to go. But it's exciting that change can happen if we stay in the game. So praise the Lord for that. Yeah, the fact that the Democrats have a non-existent platform or a platform that is full of cognitive dissonance. And back in school when I was studying sociology, came across this term, cognitive dissonance. Basically, it's the mental discomfort caused by inconsistency between what you believe and what you do. And this is from Michael Smith. He says a movement or society dominated by cognitive dissonance tends to prioritize protecting identity and ideology over maintaining logical consistency or objective truth. So we've highlighted on this podcast how many times you look at the Democrats' conflicting positions. Like they would call themselves, the champions of destroying racism, and yet they practice racism all the time.
Or democracy, no kings, and they're acting like kings.
Exactly. Yeah. And what does it matter? But it's because they promote identity over truth. And identity matters to them. Contradictions become normalized, principles are applied selectively, and inconvenient facts are rationalized away rather than confronted. So even on this redistricting, they were celebrating redistricting wins from a couple other states, and now they're using this very same argument to go against the redistricting that's happening now. It doesn't make sense. It's logically inconsistent. And maybe we could end with this. He says, the result can be a culture where loyalty matters more than consistency. Yep. We saw that.
Yep. Not principles or values.
Yep. Criticism is treated as a threat.
Yep. You're a cult.
You're a cult. Institutions become increasingly unstable because reality must constantly be reinterpreted to preserve the group's self-image.
Yep.
And some people have been so immersed in this toxic witch's brew for so long, they simply cannot see how consistent their inconsistency is. I thought that was so good.
Yeah.
People who have institutionalized cognitive dissonance inhabit a world where laws and the judiciary are sacrosanct unless they prevent you from doing what you want, where elections are the most secure ever unless you lose.
Yep.
Where you believe climate change is existential, but fly a private jet to fight the oligarchy. We see that all the time. Where you campaign against fraud, waste, and abuse, but refuse to vote for any legislation to stop it. Where you tell people they must isolate to stop the spread of a disease, but claim the disease can't spread during a protest march or rally. Boy, we saw that during COVID. Where you fear dying of lung cancer, but refuse to stop smoking, and where a biological male can become a female if enough people agree to call him a her. It is a mental state of dishonesty that allows you to claim Black Americans must be represented by Black elected officials, someone who looks like them and shares their lived experiences, and yet you actively work to elect a white progressive over a Black conservative. We saw this in Virginia. Winsome Sears, strong, conservative, Black woman. And we always talk about DEI, right? We have to have Black faces representing Black voters. Well, they put in this leftist, liberal, progressive Spannenberg, and the majority of Black Democrats in the state voted for her, and even Black Republicans voted for a Democrat because they would not vote for Winsome Sears, who is a Black candidate. So it just shows you that a lot of this talk is full of cognitive dissonance. It's all about identity politics, and at the end of the day, it's all about power.
Well, I would say maybe some Democrats actually have cognitive dissonance. They say they want one thing, but they actually want something else, and they're just delusional. But I think a lot of them they don't actually. They're just liars.
Yeah, exactly.
I just say that. Yeah, they actually want power, but they'll say everything else because you can't just say I want power. It would actually be kind of refreshing if they just go out there and say, for me, why do I want Indiana to redistrict? Because they are fighting with fire. We got to fight fire with fire. Yes. I'm not under the illusion that this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
I didn't start the fight, but I want to finish it. That's where I'm at.
This kind of takes us full circle to the SAVE Act too, because if we don't have election integrity, which is really what this is all about, then everything is a farce. If the system collapses because we have no integrity in the system, then people are going to stop voting and say what matters, and it's just going to be terrible. So I'm not one again for using twisting the system in any way for your benefit, but the Democrats are already clear that filibuster is going to go if they get the power, and And so I think we need to do what we need to do to pass this and to have fair elections, because if we lose that, we lose everything. That's my 2 cents.
I think the base is sending a message to D.C., Speaker Thune, and everyone else. I think that voice, I heard a great commentary. It's so good. He says, MAGA movement, which is a populist people movement, which, there's some stuff I really agree with. There's some stuff I'm not sure of.
Yeah.
But the MAGA movement has largely been the executive branch. It's Donald Trump. But now MAGA is starting to become legislature. And that is very, very different.
I hear Democrats screaming, and it's really propaganda. If you say something long enough, you hope people believe it, that the MAGA movement is collapsing. And I think that's nonsense.
No, just the past.
And in fact, I think while you have this group, I believe, gaining momentum, you have another group that's completely without any kind of momentum or coherency or constituency. It's going to be interesting to see what happens after the next, after he finishes and see where this all goes. But I'm with you. I think we're finding all kinds of new people jumping on board. And who would have thought? When I first saw Fetterman elected into the Senate, he's wearing sweatpants and he had just had a stroke and he could hardly put a sentence together. I'm thinking, this is who we elected to the U.S. Senate, which is supposed to be the most deliberate, branch of our government, thinking people, all that. And then I look at him and I'm like, what in the world? He's wearing sweatpants. Who would have thought he would be, in my mind right now, he is like the most common sense Democrat, if that's such a word. That's an oxymoron. But, I look at him and I'm like, this guy's actually making comments that make sense. Like he's recognizing that when Trump actually does something positive, it's okay to say, "Hey, that was good." Yeah. And who would have thought that? And in fact, I saw where he just left the Democrat Party. He didn't jump to the Republicans, but he's an independent now. Yeah. So anyway, it's just an interesting time that we're in. At the same time, the Lord is moving across our nation in amazing ways as well. So the church just needs to stay engaged. We need to keep preaching the gospel. Yep. We need to keep loving our community, and we need to keep engaged to make sure that government honors the Lord. Yep. And if we do that, I think we're going to be just fine.
Keep cultivating people who have a heart for that.
So hey, let's just say hi and congratulations to our two senators who happen to be flying to Washington, D.C. on this Monday to meet with the President of the United States, which is crazy how small that political fraternity is. Also with the Indiana Hoosiers undefeated football team also invited today to the White House. So maybe we'll see. I got to watch the news tonight. I never watch the news, but I want to see
on Fox News this time.
Hey, Trevor.
But they work so hard. I mean, you were one of the most
they really
knocking on doors. I mean, they deserve it. Those guys are stellar.
Awesome job, guys. Yeah. We're celebrating your victory, and we're celebrating the victory of the Lord Jesus Christ on planet Earth. His kingdom reigns forever and ever and ever, and that's the kingdom we're for. Amen. So we look forward to seeing you guys next Thursday.